Welcome to the world of Carry On. In this series, we're going to take a look behind the scenes at how some of the greatest Carry On films were ever made. This time, we look at everyone's guilty pleasure, Carry On Behind. But who will be providing the laughs? As the Carry On team look for a sight for sore thighs. Elkie Summer as Professor Anna Vushka. Kenneth Williams as Professor Roland Crump. Bernard Bresslaw as Arthur Upmore. Kenneth Connor as Major Leap. Jack Douglas as Ernie Bragg. Joan Sims as Daphne Barnes. Windsor Davis as Fred Ramsden. And Peter Butterworth as Henry Barnes. Carry On Behind originally started life in September of 1972, when scriptwriter Dave Freeman was commissioned to write a film script for Peter Rogers. It immediately followed the production of his film version of Bless This House. Not intended as part of the Carry On series, Peter Rogers brought Dave Freeman's screenplay Love on Wheels in April of 1973 and stored it away for future use. However, in December of 1974, Dave Freeman was employed to rewrite the script as a Carry On film, with various titles such as Carry On Carrying On, Carry On in a Caravan and Carry On Caravanning. It finally went into production as Carry On Behind in March of 1975. Now we're going to put a myth that has been circulating in the Carry On world for a number of years. The fact that Sid James and Barbara Windsor was absent from this film was not because they were dropped from the series because of pressures from the Rank Film Organisation concerning the fact that they were a bit too old and a bit lusty and, the blonde Dolly Bird stereotype. In fact, both actors went out of the country at the time of production on Carry On Behind. Sid was in Australia in the mating season, and Barbara was in New Zealand touring with her variety showcase Carry On Barbara. Hattie Jakes had left previously in Carry On Dick due to health reasons, which subsequently became a problem for Peter Rogers when he had tried to insure her on a Carry On film. Gerald Thomas, however, the director, was delighted in the non-stop flow of Carry On, revealing that now Peter Rogers has set this limit on the series by saying that the last Carry On film will be the first one to lose money. We will continue to carry on merrily. This, of course, didn't last much longer than about 3 years with the ill-fated Carry On Emmanuel, which we'll come to in a later episode. Gerald also relished a minor role in this film. He provided the off-camera vocals for the foul-mouthed Minor Bird. It was Gerald's second appearance in the series, having voiced the babyish gurglings of Oddbod Jr. in Carry On Screaming some 10 years earlier. The mid and late 70s provided non-stop entertainment from televisual delights that were making spin-offs on the big screen. And many of these new faces would be the new face of Carry On, especially in Carry On Behind. Windsor Davis was already, of course, starring in the BBC sitcom It Ain't Our Fault Mum. Meanwhile, George Layton donned the familiar white coat for his medic role. Since 1969, he had been seen on the Thames success Doctor in the House, Doctor at Large and Doctor in Charge. At the time of Carry On Behind, he had been writing the new series Doctor on the Go with partner Jeff Lynne, and they would get a stab at writing their own Carry On some years later for the aborted Carry On Again Nurse that was scheduled for 1977. Composer Eric Rogers injected his usual touch of in-joke fun with the score for Carry On Behind. As a salute to the producer, Peter Rogers' wife, Betty E. Box, Eric scored the title theme as a Scott Joplin-style rag-based song around the notes of her initials, B-E-B. Eric also came up with a perfectly introductory theme for Carry On New Boy Windsor Davis as he arranged a jazz arrangement of The Merry Wives of Windsor. Yet again, a similar dilemma was created with Carry On Behind when they were in the field, pretty much to that of Carry On Camping. A chilly spring meant that bare trees and muddy fields and icy breaths were all quite visible during the film. Although the film is set, or meant to be set in summer, this wasn't a problem for the producer, as he decided that he would rather leave it untouched rather than go through all the dealings he did with Carry On Camping, trying to make that look like it was a summer holiday. So he left it. The signage in Fred Ramsden's butcher shop clearly also states that the shop is closing for the Easter holidays, which can occur as early as March, so the dates all tied in that really this wasn't a summer holiday as such. And Bernard Bresslaw and Joan Sims were sort of switching roles during this film. as they were also filming another film on another set at Pinewood for the Disney classic One of Our Dinosaurs Is Missing. Several days where they weren't filming, they would go across to the other studio, so they were quite busy being at Pinewood for 6 to 8 weeks. So there we have it. Let's have a look now though at the film. Frustrated butcher Fred Ramsden, played by Wyndham Davis, and his dim electrician friend Ernie Bragg, played by Jack Douglas, happily go away for the weekend for a fishing trip to Riverside Holiday Caravan Park, whilst their respective wives, Sylvia and Vera, look forward to the health farm holiday that they've got booked. But once at the caravan site of Major Leap, Fred starts making eyes for 2 female campers, Carol, played by Sherry Houston, and Sandra by Carol Hawkins. However, as Ernie talks in his sleep, and any infidelities are likely to be spoken during his sleep, Fred is despondent and claims that they're not here for fishing, but they're here for the birds. Meanwhile, Professor Roland Crump teams with Roman expert Anna Vushka in an archaeological dig at the site. Arthur Upmore and his wife Linda was saddled with her mother Daphne and her vulgar minor bird. Arthur is caught in compromising positions throughout the film, with the minor bird, which is getting him into various sorts of trouble, and a blonde, attractive lady that is, well, seen in his awning a few times, played by Adrian Poster, whose husband Joe is lumbered with their giant Irish wolfhound. Now, after a few drinks in the local pub, Fred and Ernie discover that the caravan site is riddled with excavation holes and that the place could go under any minute. They don't seem to take it very seriously. However, meanwhile back on camp, Daphne Barnes discovers her husband Henry is actually working as an odd jobman on the site. He is looking for reconciliation and tells her that he's changed. But when she discovers he's won the Pauls, things do change and things start looking up for both of them once again. Major Lee is determined to give everyone a happy send-off and enjoy a night of cabaret for all the caravanners. Fred and Ernie pick up a couple of birds as promised, and whilst a phone call that gets interrupted by Barnes orders not paint stripper but an actual stripper, things seem to be coming off quite rapidly as the wet paint seems to be ripping, well, everyone's clothes in sight in the rear of their premises. As everyone ends up back at Fred's and Ernie's caravan to sort themselves out, their wives decides to turn up at the site, catching them in a caravan full of young ladies. This sparks a little minor controversy for them. There's been some heavy rain the night before, and this has left the site opened up to the giant excavation holes, with many caravans subsided during the night. And really that's where the film kind of comes to an end, as everyone leaves the site in a merry and happy way. Filming commenced on the 10th of March to the 18th of April 1975, and many locations were used in the Maidenhead and former areas of Buckinghamshire, with the film being released just 5 days before Christmas on the 19th of December of the same year. So, Carry On Behind. Well, it's a Marmite film. You either love it or you hate it. The film was made at the time when a lot of Carry On duds were being made, such as Carry On England and Carry On Emmanuel. It was that sort of slow build up to the end of the series when the films weren't at their best and a lot of the familiar faces were long gone. By Carry On Behind you had no Sid, no Barbara, no Hattie, no Charles. What did you have? A handful of experienced Carry On actors and a lot of new faces that were coming into the mould to set up maybe a new era of Carry On that sometimes didn't always work. Whilst Carry On Behind doesn't fulfill the comedy and maybe the magic of Carry On Camping, which it seems to be trying to replicate somewhat, Behind is a very average Carry On. Maybe a film that you put on a rainy day that's kind of fun maybe once or twice, but not one that you maybe would go back to, and certainly one that you wouldn't class as a classic Carry On. But there are fans that love this film and think it's one of the last great Carry On films. Frankly, without a lot of the Carry On regulars in it, it can't be classed as the last great Carry On. But with this one, it's a mixed bag. Until next time, carry on laughing.